light source, looking through a keyhole to the light, so that would be concentrating the attention to reach a very, very optimum state of concentration. That's not what Satipatthana is. That has a different purpose. It makes your attention like laser-like, in fact. And in order for you to reach, like to experience psychic abilities, things like that, that's what sometimes it's used for. And there are manuals for that. There's nothing hidden in Buddhism, you know. So again, that is not what Satipatthana is. Satipatthana allows the person to constantly open the mind. Now, when you think of a flower or a lotus opening up, the petals are still there. They're not contracted, nor are they distracted. Remember that image of the mind? A contracted mind is a mind with torpor and sloth, lethargic. And the distracted mind is all over the place. Restless, worried, remorseful, etc. What the Satipatthana is saying, have the mind be in a collected state. And that's where we get the term Samadhi. Collectedness. It's not concentrated one-pointedly. And okay, another question would be to ask something like, okay, how is this going to benefit me in my daily life? Let's say I can barely sit down and meditate. Okay? How is all of this stuff, yeah, it sounds beautiful, this and that, fine, I'll accept it. But how is that going to influence my life to become a better person? Every time we act, every time we say something, every time we are able to ponder for a millisecond before we do something, if you can just bring that sense of observation into your living experience, magic happens. There's that moment of clarity, of just seeing the thing for what it is. Sometimes you come across a person who has hurt you badly, and they never apologized. And they are doing the same things that they did to you to others. And let's say you come across them. Something in you is kind of resentful, obviously, if you've been hurt badly. And that also brings with it anger, aversion. Now that's a real human moment of experiencing life. Now, if I can bring the sense of observation into that state as I'm going through it, I understand that it's all happening because of causes and conditions. Now, I'm not analyzing it. I'm just observing the pain of me feeling the anger, of the resentment. The person is outside of yourself, right? They're there. Whatever they do, it's their choices, their whatever it is. Who do I have a responsibility for? That's it. That's it. And that's exactly what the Buddha said. The final words, it was just like, it's you. It's all about you. In that sense, the Buddha was the ultimate motivational speaker. You know, you don't need Tony Robbins or anybody. You just look at yourself. That's it. Don't look for anybody else. There's nobody who's going to be coming over and showering you with I don't know, some blessings that will get you out of the mire or the mess that you put yourself in. That's what that statement of the Buddha meant. Now, having heard that, can I really, at that moment when I'm seeing this person who's sitting there and just in a nonchalant way living their life and completely oblivious of the damage they caused you, who really has who's really burning? Who's really suffering at that moment? The entire Satipatthana talks about that moment, whether it's the body, feelings, mind, mind objects. When you point your finger at yourself and say, yeah, I'm the one who's suffering, you know full well, you know for sure how this body is experiencing those feelings. Like in therapy, for example, a lot of people intellectualize trauma. We like to give names to it. Ooh, PTSD. It so separates you from the actual painful aspects of it. Go and ask any person who's experienced PTSD and they will laugh at these definitions because it doesn't justify what they go through. It's real. And when that reality is felt in their bodies, it is felt in the body. Now, when you're sitting across from that person who's done this and that to you, and first of all, yeah, it's a thought. You see them, and you recall something through association. All of a sudden, you're feeling something in your gut in a specific area. There's tension, there's pain in the body. What was the first branch of the Satipatthana? Observation of the body. And then you observe the feeling texture of it, the flavor of what type of feeling is taking place. Is it pleasant? Is it unpleasant? Oh, I love pineapples. Oh, when I think of Sri Lanka, I think of, the coconuts and this and that, the blue skies, this and that. All association. Then I might end up somewhere else. All because of the mind. That takes us to the next. The mind, contemplation of the mind. So you see, there's always, and that's basically, if I put a big umbrella over all of these principles, you see it's delusion. Because the mind just loves to keep jumping back and forth. It just loves what to do. It's a mass-producing mechanism for newer and newer and newer concepts. So if we approach it as such, we actually see how it's really crucial to keep this observation thing going. And something else that some people ask is, I, for one, always thought that you have to first accomplish, whatever that means, the body sensational contemplation, and then move up, graduate to the feeling part of the Satipatthana, and then to the Chitta Anupatthana. No. They are happening simultaneously. So please do not approach the Satipatthana as, oh, I first have to master this, and then the feeling. No, it's not like that. And the other thing is, it's very much related to what neuroscience has been discovering, which is what Buddhism, we constantly have talked about, is the concept of bhava, or principle of bhava, which is the becoming part, the birth of an action, in a sense. If we narrow it down into the language of neurobiology, what I'm referring to is basically your habits form the actual tissue of your brain. When you're contemplating the mind, you're changing all of that. You're developing new habits that are not following old ways of doing things. Regrets, greed, aversion. Delusion is basically being pushed out slowly and slowly because wisdom is being brought in, vidya, as opposed to avidya. And this practice is based on insight, which is all about wisdom. It's not about psychic experiences. It's not about relaxation. Buddhist mindfulness practice is not about relaxation. Relaxation is a side effect. But the ultimate goal of the Dhamma, of the path of the Buddha, is to cut the cord to samsara. Period. How do you get yourself out of here? When I say here versus there, no, that opens up a whole philosophical argument. But no, When I said to get yourself out of here, out of the experiencing of the cycles of samsara, constantly, which is nothing but dukkha. And when the Buddha talked about the Four Noble Truths, he first started with dukkha, because there's 7.6 billion of us on this planet. When someone comes and says to you, well, yeah, Buddhism talks about suffering, and you're going to think, yeah, so what else is new? Everybody knows suffering. You don't tell me about suffering. There's knowing and there's knowing. And the Buddha broke it down into, systematically he broke it down as to the causes of suffering. To know that there is suffering and not to be able to see that there is a way out of suffering, that is delusion. To not be able to see that, hey, I can cut myself out of this thing. I don't have to accept it. Everybody at the time of the Buddha, including all his teachers, had come to accept that that was it. Sorry. The most we can do is reach the 8th jhana, which is, not to put it down, it's a pretty sublime state, but it is temporary. You will fall out of that state eventually, because you're still going to keep coming back and forth through cycles of life and death and life and death. And whatever you've gained, you're going to lose. Nibbana, once you experience it, once a person becomes a stream enterer, a Satipatthana, it's impossible for that person to lose track. At the most, it will take 6 more lifetimes. They're set. That's why we call them stream enterer, because they have now walked into the stream or fallen into the stream. They're all wet. 6 more lifetimes and they're done. Sometimes, actually, that's the most. So one person asked the Buddha, oh wow, I'm so sorry. The Buddha was asked, what is it that you want from us? He said, I would like all of the Sangha, laity and monks and nuns, to at least reach the first stage. And that's it. That's all I want, he said. Anyhow, thank you. That's what the Dhamma does.
Thank you, Chandana.